Namaskar, Salam Alaikum, and good morning, dear Excellencies, officials, and delegates to the 8th Indian Ocean Conference. I am honored to invite you all to this conference, which is hosted jointly by the India Foundation and RSIS Singapore. This year's conference is taking place at Muscat in Oman. This conference has already become an important calendar event for the region, for all the countries. We have a number of countries which are present today and which have been attending this conference year after year. And I see a number of excellencies who have attended more than one Indian Ocean conference in the past. I am happy to inform that in this year's conference we have 28 ministers participating from 26 countries and delegates coming from more than 40 countries. In that sense, this happens to be the biggest conference in the series of Indian Ocean conferences. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the historic and most modern country of Oman. Oman is known for its mesmerizing natural beauty. It's a wonderland of captivating landscapes and wildlife, shifting sands of deserts and enchanting mountains, multi-hued waters of the wadis, and the glittering and sparkling waves of the ocean. Welcome to Oman. At the very outset, ladies and gentlemen, it is my humble duty to express my deep gratitude to His Majesty, the Sultan of Oman, Haytham bin Tariq Al Said, for his gracious gesture of inviting us all to this conference here. I am more delighted to highlight that this year happens to be the 75th year of the bilateral relations between India and Oman. I am sure there cannot be a better way to celebrate that strong relationship between the two countries than hosting this conference here. A round of applause for His Majesty, please. We also applaud the Foreign Minister and, of course, a member of the Presidium of the Organizing Committee of the Indian Ocean Conference, His Excellency Syed Badr Hamad Al Busaidi, for all the excellent arrangements that we have been experiencing since yesterday. I must mention my greatest appreciation for His Excellency because he took pains to look into every minute aspect of the arrangements. In fact, he was personally here in this hall overseeing the arrangements yesterday. It shows his commitment as a true host, as a host that Oman is known for, a hospitality that Oman is known for. Excellency, thank you very much for this superb hospitality that you extended, and also, of course, to the excellent team of your foreign ministry. Friends, External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. Jaishankar, is, of course, a household name in the diplomatic world. Under the dynamic leadership of our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, Dr. Jaishankar has taken India's foreign policy to newer heights. He is, of course, a member of the Presidium of the Organizing Committee of this conference, but he has been an integral part of the journey from 2016 onwards. Dr. Jaishankar has his foot always in an aircraft. So he was in Washington, D.C. day before yesterday, at Munich Security Conference yesterday, and is here today amongst us all for this conference. He never misses the Indian Ocean Conference. We are very grateful to you for all the support that you extend. The Presidium of the Organizing Committee has one more wonderful member, one more senior leader, Foreign Minister of Singapore, Dr. Vivian Balakrishnan. He was our first host in 2016, and he has been there through almost all the conferences. He also never misses the conference. Unfortunately, we miss his presence in person in this conference, but he is already there virtually, listening to the proceedings, following the proceedings, and he will address us virtually from Singapore. Excellency, we welcome you, and also thank you for all the support that you extend. Ladies and gentlemen, Indian Ocean is the third largest ocean in the world. From the Persian Gulf to the Straits of Malacca, this vast expanse of water covers over 74 million square kilometers. But more importantly, the Indian Ocean is today the epicenter of the global power axis. It is here that the economies of scale and the fastest growing new economies exist. The strategic location of the Indian Ocean is transforming it rapidly into becoming the world's largest trade route by volume, connecting major economies from the North Atlantic to Indo-Pacific. Over 60% of the world's container trade and 70% of the energy trade passes through the sea lanes of this region. I'm saying trade because I'm talking in terms of the volumes. The Indian Ocean is a crowded space today, with vessels of all major countries crisscrossing its waters. Important next-generation communication networks proliferate in the region through undersea cables. This region faces challenges like piracy, seaborne terrorism, climate challenges, human and contraband trafficking, illegal and unregulated fishing, arms running, poaching, and humanitarian challenges like rising seawater levels, evacuations, and disaster relief. This conference is aimed at building collaborative frameworks in the region to address these important challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, in the end, I would like to remind to this august audience what Admiral Alfred T. Mahan had said a century ago. Admiral Mahan, who was a very close confidant of Theodore Roosevelt and also a known, renowned American strategist, wrote about a century ago, and I quote, "Whoever attains maritime supremacy in the Indian Ocean would be a prominent player on the international scene," unquote. Let me also remind to all the august audience here that when Mahan was making that statement, those comments, the Indian Ocean used to be called as the British Lake. Let me take this opportunity to humbly caution all the eminences from the Indian Ocean region assembled here that the supremacy of the Indian Ocean region must remain in the hands of all of us from this region, and we should be the masters of this region of peace. Let me end with a thought. In 1957, the European Economic Community was created with the stated objective of, within quotes, creating a strong economic partnership to foster growth and stability and enhancing European political and economic integration. 35 years later, that became the European Union. Can we substitute Europe with Indian Ocean? And the question that I want to leave before the august audience before I conclude will be, should an Indian Ocean Union take 34 more years to become a reality? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 8th Indian Ocean Conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Radav, for your inaugural address. Our host, His Excellency Sayyid Badr al-Busaidi, Foreign Minister of Oman, will shortly commence his speech. But first, if this is your first time to this country, let us give you an introduction.
The Sultanate of Oman is a country of exceptional beauty. A country where nature flourishes, offering up treasures to the eye and the spirit. A country where the richness of its landscapes is matched by the charm of its people. A country where hospitality and respect for all are a way of life. A country where bold, optimistic youth is ready to build on the foundations laid down by previous generations. A modern country that values its traditions and culture, always looking to bring together and build. A country that is alive to the potential of its people and its location. For centuries, Oman's size and its long coastline have assured its significance. Comprehensive plans for economic and social development mean its importance as a business hub is set to grow. Through education and training, Oman's 2040 vision is encouraging young people to unleash their energy. In a sometimes turbulent region, Oman is a safe haven, a friend to all. It offers an excellent environment for trade and investment, built on political stability and a consistent foreign policy committed to dialogue.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Your Excellencies and dear friends, I am really and truly honored to welcome you to the Sultanate of Oman. We are delighted to host this 8th edition of the Indian Ocean Conference here in Muscat. I thank the Indian Foundation for organizing this event, supported by the Rajarantam School of International Studies, Singapore, as well as the hard-working team that have made it happen. I thank every one of you. Our theme, Voyage to the Horizons of Maritime Partnership, compels us to reflect upon a shared maritime past, face present challenges, and chart a course for the future. Your presence here today reflects a shared principle that the Indian Ocean is not just a body of water, it is a lifeline for economies, a channel of exchange, a source of connection, and a passage for friendship. Today, we have a responsibility to progress on matters such as maritime stewardship, freedom of shipping, and tackling coastal communities' climate challenges. This conference is also an opportunity to explore the broader potential of our ocean. Oman's economic vision pivots on aligning economic progress with conservation in sectors such as the blue economy, port infrastructure, and logistics. And I hope this conference will enable us to develop shared strategies which are both mutually beneficial and sustainable. But our partnership extends far beyond maritime matters. It accomplishes and encompasses the energy transition, of course, technology, our vision of the South, and much more. Dear colleagues, the policy of the Sultanate of Oman emphasizes commonalities. We choose to focus on shared ambitions and view our diversity as a source of strength. Oman prioritizes inclusive dialogue, multilateralism, and non-interference. And Oman encourages others to make similar choices. We choose to trust, choose to lead by example, and choose to listen and engage constructively and respectfully. We mutually respect and constructive engagement. We can understand and accommodate different perspectives, build on each other's strengths, and benefit from our partners' expertise. This friends to all approach helps us to resolve shared problems in a judicial, inclusive, and sustainable way. And history proves this. Oman has been a seafaring nation for millennia. And for our ancestors, the ocean was a channel for trade and cultural exchange. This is still true today. Each community offered different skills, commodities, and insights. Through maritime partnership, we collectively reaped the rewards of this diversity. For exchange on this level, the world needs dialogue to set the terms, cooperation to enforce them, and trust in partners' goodwill. And so the law of the sea was born. The Byzantines created maritime customs and legal principles as early as the 7th century. They set the stage for global cooperation in the seas. 1,000 years later, in the early 17th century, Dutch jurist Hugo Grotius responded to sovereignty claims over the oceans in the publication that he did, Me Liberum, the Free Sea, and he insisted that the seas remain open to all. And in the following centuries, this became a universal principle. It laid the foundation for the robust international maritime law, and increasingly, it led to prosperity from the growth of trade. And by the mid-20th century, shared maritime concerns such as resource exploitation and shared opportunities such as technology encouraged greater partnership. Almost all states recognized that they lacked the naval capacity to operate globally at all times. If they wanted to act against piracy, for example, or illegal fishing and transnational crime, they needed partnership. They needed cooperation. And this led UN member states to establish the Convention of the Law of the Sea. Dear guest, your presence here today reflects a recognition that this partnership remains the best way to safeguard our seas. Maritime security, freedom of navigation, and justice will not be guaranteed through antagonism or military force and supremacist policies in which the rights of some come at the cost of others. Through partnership, the South can speak, we can collaborate on operational security, and we can listen to those actors destabilizing our seas, understand their motives, and address issues at their root. My dear friends, just as we have chosen to view the Indian Ocean not as a barrier, but as a bridge, Oman views all parties as friends with whom we have far more in common than we have differences. The Sultanate of Oman is committed to fostering an inclusive Indian Ocean, one that ensures that all nations, South and North, have an equitable stake in the security and the prosperity of these waters. There are challenges not everyone share our emphasis on peacefully. There are challenges that not everyone will probably engage with us on. But as we launch the 8th Indian Ocean Conference here in Oman today, we must urge everyone to lead by example. We must not be carried by currents of antagonism. Partnership must be our anchor, and let us strengthen the multilateral platforms which promote collaboration, capacity building, and shared responsibility. Excellencies, dear friends, we are here because of our similarities as well as our differences. Our histories were all shaped by the same ocean. We may have adapted differently to its changing tides, but today it is a source of security, stability, and prosperity for us all. This conference is an opportunity for our similarities to bond us further and for our differences to complement each other as we collectively navigate towards new horizons of partnerships and a brighter future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sayyid Badr. We are delighted to be joined live now by Dr. Vivian Balakrishnan, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Singapore, via live video link. Minister, it's a pleasure to invite you to address the conference virtually. The floor is now yours.
Thank you. Minister for Foreign Affairs of Oman, Sayyid Badr bin Hamad Al Busaidi, of course, my good friend, the Minister for External Affairs of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. First, an apology for not being able to join you physically in person, but at least I'm here live virtually. It's an honor, a privilege to address all of you at the 8th Indian Ocean Conference. And let me extend my deepest appreciation to our good friend and stalwart Minister Sayyid Badr for hosting this conference, as well as Dr. Ram Madhav, who's been an indefatigable spirit behind this conference from the India Foundation, and of course the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies. Thank you all for co-organizing this. The theme of today's conference, Voyage to the New Horizons of Maritime Partnership. For millennia, and here I will echo Sayyid Badr, the Indian Ocean has been a vital economic lifeline, a cultural bridge, a conduit for essential commerce. From the ancient maritime spice route to some of today's busiest shipping lanes, like the Straits of Malacca, the Indian Ocean has fostered not just the movement of physical goods, but the exchange of knowledge and ideas that have shaped our shared history. The Indian Ocean today connects the major engines of the international economy, all the way from North Atlantic to those of us here in the Asia Pacific. The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development estimates that over 80% of global trade by volume and over 70% by value is transported by sea. A substantial portion of this flows through the Indian Ocean, including about 80% of the world's maritime oil trade and 9.48 billion tons of cargo. It's worth recollecting that despite modern connectivity, air travel, and high-speed rail, in fact, maritime shipping remains the most cost-efficient way of transporting vast quantities of cargo across our globe. An average container ship that traverses the Suez Canal today can carry about 18,000 TEUs, 20-foot equivalent units. If we were to unload every single container from this ship and place it onto a train, that train would stretch for more than 100 kilometers. There is no substitute for the economies of scale offered by maritime shipping. However, this is premised on the continued openness and sustainability of the oceans and the seas. The fact of the matter is our world has become more dangerous. There are hot wars still smoldering in the Middle East, in Africa, in Ukraine. There is a danger of proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, as well as precision and AI-guided systems becoming more lethal and potent in the future. Today, we all know that even non-state actors can interdict vital lanes of communication. At the same time, the liberal world order and the multilateral system, which we have taken for granted over many decades, is now severely eroding. And there has been a pushback all over the world against free trade and economic integration. What this means is that many countries are now taking more protectionist and nationalistic positions. We've also seen flagrant violations of international law and the UN Charter. In these times, I think for all the countries represented in this conference, we must reaffirm our collective commitment to international law and a rules-based world order. The 1982 United Nations Conventions on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, provides that essential legal framework that ensures freedom of navigation and equitable access to maritime resources as a right and not by the grace of any resident superpower. These principles, enshrined in UNCLOS, enable global maritime trade to flourish as vessels can traverse freely across national jurisdictions and international waterways. For instance, a ship departing from Singapore can freely sail through the Straits of Malacca, cross the international waters in the Indian Ocean, and navigate through territorial seas in order to visit Mumbai or Salalah, and without seeking permission or paying rental, or even seeking license fees for that matter. This is what freedom of navigation means, and this is guaranteed under UNCLOS. For small trading economies like Singapore and Oman, the open and unimpeded flow of maritime trade is absolutely essential. Just last year, the Port of Singapore set a new record, and we handled over 40 million TEUs. This is just in Singapore. If you lined up all the containers that were processed through Singapore last year, if you line them all up, they would stretch more than 6.5 times around the world's equator. That's not a small number. For all of us here, including littoral and landlocked states that benefit from this essential maritime shipping, UNCLOS, and by extension, a rules-based world order is essential. There is some reason to be optimistic. The adoption by consensus of the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction, or BBNJ for short, agreement, in June 2023, actually, given the times, is a remarkable victory for international law. And Singapore was proud to have played our part in this global effort. Our ambassador, Rina Lee's leadership as president of the Intergovernmental Conference helped to bring the BBNJ agreement to fruition. And this agreement aimed at conserving and sustainably using marine biodiversity in the high seas has direct implications for the Indian Ocean, which is currently also under threat from climate change and global warming. Which brings me to my next point, the need to protect our common heritage, to protect our oceans. The sea surface temperatures in the Indian Ocean have risen by an average of 1 degree Celsius. And you don't need to be in the Maldives or Mauritius to see for your own eyes the widespread coral bleaching and the loss of seagrass. The seas have become rougher and extreme weather events like cyclones have become more frequent. And the key shipping routes are being disrupted. At the current rate of warming, the Indian Ocean is projected to experience near permanent marine heat waves. With the BBNJ agreement, marine protected areas can be established in international waters. We believe this will safeguard critical habitats and marine ecosystems that act as essential carbon sinks, another critical element for mitigating global warming. We must also invest in sustainable development of the maritime industry. The International Maritime Organization aims to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by around 2050. Today, shipping accounts for nearly 3% of global greenhouse gas emissions. In Singapore, we are taking steps to reduce our maritime emissions. We have revised our Maritime Singapore Green Initiative to offer incentives for ships that adopt cleaner technologies and sustainable fuels. We are also boosting port productivity and sustainability through new technologies like smart grids. Our Global Center for Maritime Decarbonization completed its final trial of biofuels, which saw a 28% reduction in emissions compared to conventional fuels. We have also set up a Center for Excellence in Maritime Energy and Sustainable Development to innovate new solutions. We have established 6 bilateral green and digital shipping corridors to support the decarbonization of the maritime industry and to enhance efficiencies through digitalization. I've taken some pains to enumerate this because actually what we want is to make an appeal for new partners, especially from the Indian Ocean, to join us on this essential enterprise for the future. So let me conclude by saying that in an era of increasing geopolitical uncertainty and environmental challenges, all of us need to work together to uphold a stable, rules-based maritime order and to pursue sustainable solutions to safeguard our shared ocean, the Indian Ocean, for future generations. And this conference is an important opportunity for us to exchange ideas, forge new collaborations, reaffirm our collective commitment to these goals. Look forward to the constructive discussions ahead and to charting a course for more secure and sustainable future for all of us in the Indian Ocean. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Minister, for your speech. It's a pleasure for you to join us live from Singapore. We now kindly invite Dr. Jai Shankar, External Affairs Minister of India, to the stage for the conference keynote address.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, dear friends, it's a great pleasure today to join you all and share my thoughts at the 8th Indian Ocean Conference on our voyage to new horizons of maritime partnership. Before I do so, let me express my gratitude, appreciation to the government of the Sultanate of Oman, specifically to my brother, Foreign Minister Syed Badr, to the organizers, India Foundation, RSIS, and of course to Ram Madhavji, who's been the force behind the conference for so many years. Friends, we meet at a time when there is considerable churn in world affairs. At such a juncture, an open and constructive exchange of views is of particular benefit. I'm confident that all of us will find great value in the discussions that we will be holding over the next 2 days. Changes in the global order may be expressed through new ideas and concepts, but they're also reflected in the evolving landscape. The Indian Ocean region is no exception to that rule. And this matters not just to us as inhabitants of this community, but given our salience in so many dimensions, to other regions and nations as well. After all, as we heard from previous speakers, the Indian Ocean is veritably a global lifeline. Its production, consumption, contribution, and connectivity is central to the manner in which the world runs today. Now, at the two ends of the ocean, this churn is at its sharpest today. In the Middle East or West Asia, there is a serious conflict underway with the potential for further escalation and complication. At the same time, long-standing issues are being revisited, sometimes with a radically different approach. Its maritime consequence is visible in a serious disruption of global shipping with considerable cost to all our countries. There are questions which arise from our ability and willingness to respond, as indeed from partnerships that are relevant to that task. At the other end, the Indo-Pacific has been witnessing deeper tensions and sharper contestations. The scenario is intrinsically maritime in nature, involving respect for and observance of international law. There are other concerns, some related, some autonomous. Stronger assertions of interest is one issue, concerns about unilateral changes to the status quo another. From India's own experience, we can say that adhering to agreements and understandings is a central element to ensuring stability and predictability. The region in between is where most of us come from, being littoral states or island nations of the Indian Ocean. Each country has its individual challenge, but nevertheless, there are some general trends that are worth noting. Many are developmental in character, but do, in some form or the other, impinge on maritime behavior. Like other parts of the global south, the Indian Ocean nations too face resource constraints and economic headwinds. Many of them are struggling to meet their SDG targets. In quite a few cases, debt is a serious concern. Again, some of that arises from stresses of the international economy, but in certain cases from imprudent borrowing and unviable projects. Another common issue is that of rebuilding connectivity in the region after decades of colonial-era disruptions. To make this a truly shared endeavor, it is vital to ensure that connectivity initiatives are consultative and transparent, not unilateral and opaque. Yet another widespread concern is the challenge faced by Indian Ocean states to monitor their EEZ and secure their fishing interests. Nor can they be impervious to illegal trafficking of various kinds, and of course the specter of terrorism. Each of these dimensions, and certainly the cumulative impact, has a strong maritime implication. Our journey to new horizons must necessarily focus on addressing these challenges. So, how is India contributing to these endeavors? obviously by rapidly strengthening its own capabilities and forging partnerships with Indian Ocean neighbors, near and far, but also by shouldering responsibilities, stepping up in times of trouble, and providing leadership where required. Let me underline this today by providing 10 relevant examples. 1. Stabilizing economies and societies under stress would surely rank among the most important. As the impact of the COVID pandemic and conflict unfolded, India was the source of vaccines, of medicines, of food, fuel, and fertilizer for many others. The biggest commitment it made, of course, was to Sri Lanka, a financial package of about $4 billion to stabilize its economy that had slid into crisis. 2. The India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC, and the India-Myanmar-Thailand Trilateral Highway, IMTT, would be among the 2 key collaborative connectivity initiatives under consideration. The International North-South Transport Corridor, INSTC, is another significant example. India is obviously the common element in all of them. IMEC and INSTC have an explicit maritime segment, while the IMTT would provide a land link between India and the Pacific. 3. We have been increasingly active in a first responder mode in the Indian Ocean. This could be the conflict in Yemen, natural disasters in Mozambique, Sri Lanka, or Myanmar, the earthquake in Nepal and Turkey, or a water crisis in the Maldives. Both of Mauritius and Sri Lanka, India has responded to significant oil spills. 4. Recognizing that an institutional response is required for disaster situations, India has been active in encouraging plurilateral cooperation. The most notable of this is the Quad initiative that encourages interoperability and cooperation for such contingencies. Similarly, the RECAP Center at Singapore, to which India contributes, helps address the challenges of piracy. 5. In a world of increasing traditional and non-traditional threats in the maritime domain, it is essential that there is a common operating picture as well as shared platforms. The International Fusion Center, located outside Delhi, aims to do just that. By establishing coastal surveillance radars and partnering on white shipping agreements, maritime traffic is made safer and more secure to our collective benefit. 6. It is, unfortunately, not just enough to prepare or even prevent. Extreme situations sometimes require a robust countering, including through the deployment of naval forces. For more than a year now, India has been doing precisely that in the Northern Arabian Sea and the Gulf of Aden. Today, we are seeing some improvement in maritime safety and security as a result of coordinated responses. 7. Training and equipping other navies and coast guards is a natural extension of this approach. India has such collaboration with a range of countries, from Vietnam to Mauritius and Mozambique to Sri Lanka. 8. Ensuring trusted communication in a digital era is also a crucial national security objective for many of us. This is a task too big to be attempted by most individual nations. Participating in consortiums is therefore an inevitable outcome. Both as a government and as a vendor, India is contributing its fair share and more in this regard. The visit just concluded of Prime Minister Modi to the United States highlighted this particular dimension. 9. In a globalized world, there is a growing realization that distance cannot be a justification for agnosticism on matters key to global welfare. As a result, the Indo-Pacific is experiencing activity of both resident and non-resident powers. Harmonizing them is a challenge that India, in particular, is well placed to address. It has the confidence of the global South, as well as the credentials to engage major powers. We strive to ensure that agendas alien to our ethos and outlook are not inserted in the region, and equally encourage respect for UNCLOS in both spirit and letter. And finally, 10th, India has been energetic in institution building in the Indian Ocean region. We have the Indian Ocean Rim Association, IORA, whose current Secretary General is a senior Indian diplomat. We have BIMSTEC, whose Secretary General is also here with us. We look forward to its summit soon. There is the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, IONS, which is a productive conclave of naval representatives. There is the Colombo Security Conclave, and there is the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative. And of course, we have the Indian Ocean Conference itself, which brings together so many stakeholders at various levels. So, ladies and gentlemen, our voyage to new horizons is best done as a coordinated flotilla of the Indian Ocean. We are understandably a diverse group of countries in terms of history, geography, development, politics, or culture. But what unites us is a common devotion to the well-being of the Indian Ocean region. In a volatile and uncertain era, we seek stability and security as the baseline. But beyond that, there are ambitions and there are aspirations that we strive to achieve. They will be easier reached when we look out for each other, when we supplement our strengths, and when we coordinate our policies. I can assure you that India will be in the forefront of these endeavors. I thank you for your attention.